Hi, Brad.
Hi,
Hello. I see
how's it
people
going?
joining in. Good, good. So good to have you here. So,
I'm
hi,
very happy to
everyone.
talk to you in person like this. Well, kind of in person.
Semi in person. All right. So everyone, thank you so much for joining in. So I want to just give a brief introduction. Brad is a famous financial psychologist. So, but yeah, he does a lot of things. He show up here. He's also very famous on TikTok. So we're gonna talk about that as well. So Brad, I think some of my audience don't know you. So maybe let's just assume half of them is the first time they see you, and half probably know you. So why don't you introduce yourselves, like who you are, and then what you do and stuff like that.
Sure. So am a clinical psychologist. That's how I started my professional training. So I have a doctorate in clinical psychology, and I got interested in money and investing and all of that after I got out of grad school. I owed $100,000 in student loan debt. I don't know if anyone can relate to student loan debt, but it was a terrible sort of experience for me. I saw a friend of mine make $100,000 in 1 year trading stocks, Christine, and I thought, wow, this is a fabulous way for me to get out of debt. So
Mhm.
I sold everything I had of value and I put it all in the stock market, and I had a fabulous 3 months, and then the tech bubble
Mhm.
burst. And I watched my money melt away. I did all the classic mistakes that you would do as a beginner investor. And I grew up poor. So the other part is I didn't really know what I was doing, right? I just thought this is what wealthy people do. And so I got really interested in the psychology about why at least a reasonably intelligent person would do something so radically stupid with his money. And that's exactly how I got interested in it. So I started to look into the field of psychology. And to be honest, there was nothing done. There was no studies. I mean, it was alarming to me because I knew money was a big stressor for the majority of Americans. I knew I wasn't the only one. And I knew that this was psychological in nature. And I couldn't find anything. So I sort of joke that within a matter of a few weeks, I became the world's leading expert in financial psychology, essentially because psychologists had totally ignored the topic. And so I got interested in that way. And then I started to do consulting, and we created a treatment program for money disorders. And that was featured on 2020. That was pretty cool and exciting. And then I've just been doing a lot of writing, and I teach at Creighton University. We have a program in financial psychology there. And a while back, I went ahead and got my certified financial planner designation. And so I teach, I do consulting, I do asset management for clients too. So we have a asset management company. We manage somewhat over like $350 million for clients. And so I'm really passionate about doing research in the psychology of money, both to understand, my own thinking. Obviously, that's where I got started. But a lot of my research has been around how do we get people to do what they should be doing around money? How do we get people to save more? What techniques can we use from psychology? And then also, like, what is the psychology differences between wealthy people and poor and middle class people? And again, this is my own passion project because I was trying to figure myself out. So I've done a bunch of studies related to that.
Got it. So we'll talk more about that psychology of wealth. So, but in terms of, like, I know you're also passionate about educating people, financial literacy. You show up on TikTok daily to educate people, right? So, like, I'm just curious, like, I it's so sad right now. Like, I mean, I had Dr. Joe Salucio, you know him. He was also on my live stream like, a couple of weeks ago. So he pretty much said in one of the comments, yeah, you can depend on our education system for financial literacy. So, and I wish, like, I mean, I wish they would teach that in like elementary, or high school at the minimum, right? To college. So, what do you think of that? Like, I mean, like, it's just an important part. Money. I feel very strongly about this. That's why I show up daily on social media to educate people. Financial literacy, because money, you're gonna have to deal with that forever. Just like being healthy, being spiritual. So it's such an important part of just your development or just living life. So tell me your opinion about that. Like, I mean, is there a way to change our society now to financial literacy, to be in school, So
Yeah, first of all, I totally agree with you. It's so critically important. Now, I'm a little bit older than you, maybe a lot older. But when I went to school, we actually had something called home economics. And actually, they built in personal finance into it too. So I remember having this in middle school. We were taught how to balance a checkbook, for example. But all that, it was gone, and it went away with educational cuts. And it's so important now, though. It wasn't actually that important about 50 years ago, to be honest. Like, as a country, we did not need to be that financially literate. Like you couldn't get credit if you wanted it. So you couldn't abuse credit. You couldn't even get credit. Your company was going to pay your pension for you. There was Social Security you could count on. And what's happened as a society is we have taken the burden of taking care of people in retirement off of social structures and right directly on the individual, right on their head. And we've smacked them with it. And we haven't educated them about it. To your point, this needs to be standard education because all the rules have changed. And if you want to retire and if you want to be a good financial health, it's 100% on the individual right now. And it's a big travesty we're not teaching people.
Yep. And then one of the problem with some of my clients is that, when they have 401k, they struggle with like, should I even contribute to it? Or like the people who actually contribute, they're like, oh, I only want to contribute till the matching. Like, I'm like, I only match 3%. Why should I contribute more than that? So I have to educate them on the value, the tax consequences, tax benefit, and what is Roth, 401k, what is traditional 401k, because they think, oh yeah, I only want it for the free money. Or some people who don't even contribute, they're like, what's the point in the matching? I won't see that till I'm 65, whatever. So I have to teach them that's free money right there. And then no one's got to take care of you. There's no more pension. I don't know about Social Security, if that's going to be there or what. So hopefully it will be there. So I know you touched a little bit about, the school, the 100K debt. And yes, I do have clients with 6-figure debt, kind of common here in the Bay Area, so, and then people law school, whatever. So, and then, so tell me, I mean, I would just like get your thoughts. I know you have a PhD, right? You're a clinical psychologist right now. So Len, what do you think? I mean, is school still valuable for people? Because sometimes like, I feel like people think of going to grad school, like, but then they rack up 6-figure debt and then go to like law school, and that's another 6-figure debt. And then if you think about it, I don't know if you ever did an analysis, like, is it worth it sometimes to go rack up all this and how many years you never earn money? And then later on, then you're gonna have to like replace the income. Actually, I'm dealing with a client right now. He's like wanting to go to MBA, to go to either UC Berkeley, which is 150K for 2 years not working, or he can stay with another place or online where it's cheaper and he can work. But then to him, he feels it's gonna be more worth it to go this route versus working and still making money and being online because he wants the in-person experience. So I'm curious what your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of another shift that's happened, but nobody really told us about it. It used to be that you just go get a bachelor's in anything and you just have the immediate keys to making more money. And if you look at all the data, this is the correlation between education and income. I mean, if you look at all the charts, right? I mean, it's like the more education you get, the more money you make. And that's historically been true. But I will tell you, I 100% agree that, for me anyway, it's got to be a business decision now. It's got to be a business decision. You got to make it upfront. You got to look at, what am I going to get a degree in? And this is really tough for an 18-year-old, like who doesn't even know who they are or what they want to do. But you really got to, you got to start with the end in mind. It's like, okay, so what degree am I going to get? What is the average salary that comes out with that degree? And you might even need to shop around in terms of institutions on, does it really matter? Like if you're going to become an accountant, does it really matter whether you get the degree at a very, very expensive school or at a cheaper state school, or at a community college? Like, I'm not even sure that it might matter, but a lot of times it doesn't matter. And so really putting it in as a business decision, and there's lots of calculations in there. And I know you help people with those calculations, Christine, but it's like, you got to put a lot of them in the mix, but it's no longer just set it and forget it, get a degree, everything will turn out fine. That's not the case at all.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually quite sad. Like I have some clients who went to masters and then now they have almost a 6-figure debt. It's close to 6-figure debt, and then yet they're making money. It just makes me wonder, you're not making enough to have like to make it like a good good business decision. I'm like, you might have been good enough with just an undergrad and then just maybe, I don't know, just take certification or online classes. So it's actually quite sad. And then what makes me even more sad, because like after they graduate, then there's this third party company that deals with that, and then they just like, they don't care about educating you about getting out of it because they want to keep you in debt. So it's quite sad. Okay, so let's talk about I know let's talk about psychology of wealth and success, because that's what you're an expert on. So tell us, like, what makes people wealthy? What differentiates a wealthy person versus a non-wealthy person? And I read the book The Millionaire Next Door. So I don't know, that's one of my favorite books. And then like for me, it's like, they don't care so much about status or like bling bling cars or whatever, like millionaires are very smart. They're not about showing. So what do you think is the, behind this wealthy people?
Yeah. So first of all, great book. I read it years ago, and it inspired one of our more recent studies where we looked at some similar variables. But just through observation, I was like, I knew that wealthier people just thought differently about money. And believe it or not, until I did my studies, there was no study done that showed that your beliefs about money and about how money works predict your income and net worth and all that stuff. And so thankfully, we've done that research, and we know for a fact that what you believe about money actually predicts your income, your net worth, your financial behaviors, how much credit card debt you have. It's profound. And so I'm super curious when I talk to people about their beliefs around money, because I know it's going to determine their entire life around income and net worth and all that stuff. And so that is one of the things we found in our studies. The ultra wealthy people, for an example, very, very different beliefs about money, especially from poorer people and middle class people also. And one of those beliefs is called money vigilance. And the crazy part about this, and to the millionaire next door point, ultra wealthy people are actually much more likely to sort of downplay how much money they have. And if you ask them how much money they made, they would downplay how much money they actually made. They would actually tell you less. They're actually much less showy. And so for me, that was sort of a surprise when I was young, like learning that, because that's not what you see on Instagram. That's not what you see in social media. It's like flashing cash, leaning against a Lamborghini. But it's just not true. I mean, the only way to become wealthy, and again, 88% of millionaires are self-made. And this is another belief that I hear that really trips people up. It's like, you can't become wealthy unless you were born rich, that kind of thing. Not true at all. I mean, we live in an incredible country, actually. If you would like to raise your socioeconomic status, there's all sorts of opportunities to do that. And so anyway, like that mindset just totally will trip people up. And if you have beliefs around money as being bad and corrupting, or rich people are evil and greedy, all the studies we've done, if you have those beliefs, you're less likely to be successful.
Yeah, I actually want to share yesterday. Actually, it's a repost. So sometimes I repost my video from a couple of months ago if it's good and sends a good message. So I shared the affirmation, I love money and money loves me. And what's so funny, Brad, was that I got some comments quoting the Bible, money is the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. And then I'm just kind of amused by it, because then the point of my entire post is that you're opening that energy, because like it's very hard for you to attract something if you don't love it, right? So it's just an affirmation, I love money. And then it's not like you're loving money over everything else. It's more about you're attracting the abundance. So tell me more, like, what is your favorite money affirmation or money script?
Yeah. So, I want to talk about what you just said around the religious thing, because this trips people up. And one of the biggest misquotes I see in the Bible is that money is the root of all evil. And that it actually doesn't say that. It actually does not say that. It actually says the love of money. And to your point, it's like when you put money above family, above health, above doing the right thing in the world, yes, of course, that leads to evil. That leads to evil if you put anything in front of those sorts of values. But anyway, just as an example of something that trips people up, and actually it makes you kind of feel better about your situation. That's one of the traps we have, is we sort of, we cling to beliefs that make us feel better about ourselves. And those can get really difficult to change. So
and I also want to say that I think that I feel like people are afraid of getting more monies, because I think they're just afraid of what will come out of them, because I truly believe it's just a tool. It will bring up more of who you are. So if you're a greedy person, the more money you have, of course, the more greedy you are. But I think if you're a generous person or a kind person, the more money you have, the more generous you will be. So I embrace that. I am not afraid. The more money I have, the more I can give out, the more programs I can create, maybe even for free. So I really think it just shows more of who you are. So I think people who say that, I think they might have some sort of fear behind that they have to work through.
They
so
do.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to say that what I've noticed in our writing and our research is we call it a financial comfort zone. And essentially, like, we're all comfortable at a certain socioeconomic level. And what's so difficult about this is that the further you get from that, the further you get away from your family and your closest friends. And we're very much attracted to people who have the same beliefs around money. And so that is actually what I've seen is one of the biggest triggers for people blowing it, get blowing their money if they win the lottery, or like putting a mental ceiling on their wealth. It's because they're so desperately afraid that if they become different than their family and friends, they're going to be judged. People are going to ask them for money. They're going to think that they're greedy and selfish. I mean, all this stuff. And because we're herd animals, we're like designed to belong to tribes. And the further you get from the tribe, the more panicked we get. And I think that's a huge barrier for a lot of people.
So how do you advise them to handle that? Like they're like afraid. Okay, like maybe I don't know. Maybe they came from a family like the family isn't as well off, and then they're afraid to be rich. Maybe because like people are gonna come in. So how do you help those people who are having that problem?
Yeah, it's super challenging, especially if you get the money fast. That's when we have all these stories of people blowing it and doing all kinds of stupid things, and that happens to a lot of people because of this issue. And so essentially, it's almost like the metaphor I like is almost like being an immigrant to a new country. It's like it actually requires that type of stress. You're actually moving into another world that they have a different language. They look at investments differently. They hire people like coaches. Like one of the studies we did is the ultra wealthy people, they had coaches, they had accountants, they had financial planners, they had attorneys. They have this team of people around them. And what we know about middle class people is they're more resistant to doing that. Just as an example of something that's totally different. But if you want to be successful, I mean, the successful people have those people that they consult with. Like you don't have to hire them as full-time staff members or anything, but they consult with them around the way. Just as one difference, that's a totally different cultural difference. And if people can't navigate those challenges around people wear different things, they talk in a different way, they live in different places, they drive different things, and it's totally foreign to you, creates a lot of stress. And so I think we're just sort of naturally wired to just go back to where we're comfortable unless we're careful.
Yeah. Exactly. And then like sometimes you might have to really work with someone to push through that, and then you can do it on your own. So that's where financial professionals are there. So I'm gonna go to the comments. I think there's a lot of comments now. So one thing I do wanna so someone said 401k may no longer be the best if market doesn't recover. But one second, and someone made a comment, never just rely on 401k, place money in Roth IRA, money market, and investment. To me personally, 401k is dying, and I'm not going to solely rely that. So why don't you share your opinion about that, Dr. Brad? And then I have my own opinion about that.
Yeah.
Too.
So this is, and I'm kind of confused. I got to be honest. I'm a little bit confused about people not liking 401ks, just to be honest with you. And there's sort of this meme out in social media about how they're bad or something. I totally don't get it. I have a 401k. I contribute as much as possible as I can. I also have IRAs, and those are great too. It's just a titling. It's just a different title on an account. What you have inside is totally different. They're just unrelated. You can have the exact same stuff in a 401k as you have in a Roth IRA. I know you know this. This is for the audience. It has nothing to do with what you're holding inside of it. And that is your money. That's 100% your money. If you quit your job tomorrow, you take it with you. Just roll it over. So I don't get the aversion of 401ks. I mean, obviously different plans have different things you can get inside of them, but they're, in my opinion, they're better than 99% of other like products out there that get sold to people. And when you get a match, when you get free money, it's kind of insanity to not participate in your 401k. It also allows you to set aside more money than you can in a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. So anyway, I'm a huge fan of them. I don't really, and by the way, I'm not selling 401ks. I don't work for a 401k company. But yeah, I don't really get the resistance to them. Now, it would be sad if they went away. That would be sad. I would agree with that. But if they did, you would just then take your money and put it into another account under your name. So.
Yeah, Emily, I am curious to know why you don't like 401k. So I'd be curious to explore that with you. But I do agree with Brad that I do see there's a lot of value with 401k and then you can combine 401k with IRA and you can combine with all the things that you just said too. But I personally 401k I think it's a great tool. And then like Brad said, like that's probably the better tool, but compared to the others, like for example, I'm not sure you meant insurance or annuity, so I kind of have an aversion towards some of the whole life or cash value. So I am curious, like Dr. Brad, like what is
I
your
see
opinion
I see
about
that
insurance?
she said that her plan was probably, her plan itself was sketchy, so she has an aversion to the plan that her company had for her.
Got it.
So
Yeah. So okay. Yep. So I think maybe that has more to do with your company too, Emani. So like, but don't judge the entire 401k just by one company mismanaging it, or maybe they didn't do a good job. So don't just look at the overall benefits of 401k, because it is really a great tool if used appropriately, and if you understand how to use it, and you know how it fits to your overall financial goals. Okay. Hope that makes sense, Emani. Good question. Someone said, "Thank you. 401ks are wonderful. I have one, and you should too." Okay, I think that's Momo. Thank you, Momo. Yeah, sometimes they don't see that, they don't show who put it there. Hi there, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. Did you consult with your benefits specialist and other? Okay, so yeah, I met Momo. That might be it. Okay, so let's talk about. Okay, yeah, Brad. So I'm curious. Like, what do you think about insurance? Like whole life, term life insurance. What is your general opinion about that? So I myself, I'm more. It feels like there's two types of people. The people who buy term life and invest the rest, and then there's people who are mostly salespeople who's about like, oh yeah, have whole life, cash value, whatever, that's the most beneficial. So I'm curious to know what your opinion about that.
Yeah. So first of all, I should say that I am a certified financial planner. I can't give specific advice to anyone out there because I have no idea what your situation is. But I will tell you this, that I am a huge fan of term life insurance if you need life insurance. And by the way, you might not need life insurance. And that's a whole other thing to consider. If you have dependents who are dependent on your income, you probably do need it. And it's probably very important. But some of the other products, like I'm not a huge fan of them for, I would say, most people. Now there are some people in like ultra high income areas where something like a whole life plan might be actually a pretty necessary strategy, a tax saving strategy, that kind of thing. So I do think there's a place for them. But I think for most people that I work with, most people I've ever worked with, most people I've ever met, most people I'll ever meet in the future, probably term life is probably very adequate for what they need. A lot of them have products that are built in. It's like you get life insurance plus you get investments. And when you run the numbers, like you're just better off investing it somewhere else, like in your IRA or whatever like that. You'll just do better over time. So.
Yeah, I love that, Brad. Thanks for explaining, and then thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, if you ever see on social media people giving investment advice, you have to be very careful. Like financial advisors, they have to be in compliance, regulated by the state, so they can't even give that. So I see a lot of social media giving this blah 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 advice, and I'm like, you have to be careful. So it's a very regulated. But then in general, I think I agree with you, Brad. I'm actually a big the believer of that. And then life insurance is about like, are you insuring a life who's financially dependent on you, right? So I actually got very turned off, like when in the beginning stage, I was trying to want to get into this role, financial advisor. Like I have someone here locally, he's actually CFP too, he's also a whole life insurance salesman. I felt like he was so focused on selling me whole life, and then I was telling him, I have no kids, I don't plan on having kids, I only have two dogs. Nobody's financially dependent on me. And he was still, I said, I was just focused. I just want to learn about investments. Just teach me investments. I don't need someone. And then and then I had to literally ask him, can you give me a breakdown of all your whole life insurance? Like the whatever, how much I'm putting in, how much. And I analyzed that. I mean, I wasn't getting much, and they don't really explain to you, like when you add that up, the time value of money, how much more you're gonna get. So anyway, I really was turned off by that. They're just so focused on just selling you.
Right, exactly. Because they, like, for example, they'll make a lot more commission on a whole life policy than they would a term policy, or certain annuities. They make lots of money. Like, and so that can sometimes cloud their judgment on what is in your best interest. And they're actually not legally required to sort of give you what's in your best interest. And so it's sort of like, as long as it's suitable, there's this sort of like fuzzy area around like, well, as long as it, and so, by the way, I know a lot of investment specialists who are incredible people who would never do what just happened to you. So it's really, you got to shop around and find somebody, because insurance in and of itself is such a huge specialty. And, the more net worth you have, the more complicated it becomes. And that's where having that expertise is really critically important.
Yep. And then you always have to do your research. Like, this person selling to you, what are they? And usually life insurance salespeople or annuity sales force, they just train salespeople. Like they probably don't know anything about finances. Like you ask them complicated question about finances, they have no clue because they're trained to sell. So be very, very careful who you're getting advice from. Okay.
But that's also why like you shouldn't be, like, financial professionals shouldn't be telling people never buy whole life. Because it's not true.
Yes,
It's not true. There are
exactly.
circumstances in which
Yes.
that's your best move. And so that's why it
Yes.
really pays to consult with an expert that you trust.
Exactly. Okay, so someone asked, do you believe money scripts are like personality traits, relatively set and unchangeable, or more like fashion, which we can choose easily to change to a style that is more suitable and flattering? What do you think?
So I think that I lean a little bit more on the personality side. They can be changed. Let me just make this very, very clear. But quite often they're resistant to change. So these are like, if you have this like negative association with money, chances are it came from your childhood or sometimes even generations before you. And so those types of beliefs can, first of all, we're not even aware of them. So most people have no clue the beliefs that are clanking around in their subconscious around money, and they have no idea how it's impacting them. And so bringing awareness to it is super important. Finding out where they came from by thinking like, what did your mom teach you? What did your dad teach you? What was it like for you growing up? Super important. And the ones that are the most difficult to change are the ones that are really attached to strong emotion or trauma. Like, for example, there's some money scripts happening right now in our culture that are going to be pretty traumatic for people. Based on all the emotion and trauma and financial devastation that's happening. Those are the ones that are more difficult to change. As a quick example, people from the Great Depression. If you know anyone who lived through that, or you have grandparents, a whole generation of anxious people who feel like there's not going to be enough money and are hoarders of money. And, you open up the sink in the bathroom and there's like 60 half-used bars of soap in there, and they're just saving up for the next apocalypse. And a lot of these people did this their entire life. Like my grandfather, this is one of the stories I found. He lost all his money in the Great Depression. So imagine going to the bank one day and all of a sudden all your money's gone. He lived into his 90s, and I didn't know this until I went home and started interviewing my family members, trying to figure out my own financial psychology. He never put a dollar in the bank the rest of his life. And so he's in his 90s. He's living in a trailer park. Obviously, it's not good for you to like keep money in a box, but that's exactly what he did because he was so fearful because of that trauma.
Yep. Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so trauma can really change you. And then I think one example I like to use was that I was trying to help my clients. Like, she always think that making money is about working hard. So when I give her affirmation, making money is easy, it was so hard for her to deal with, because then all her life she had to work really hard, and then her family is all about working hard. So we had to work on transforming that as well. So yep, that can money script can really change you. Okay, let me read the comments. My family and I have term life insurance. And then, like, I was going on Facebook, David Mayer, who's an RCFP, I don't know if you know him. He said 401k is an investment, it's a container. So that's very true. It's not investment. Okay. Yes. Whole life has allowed commission for the seller. Yeah, Brad. How many percent is the commission for whole life insurance? Is it like 80%?
I don't know. I've never been an insurance salesman, but a lot of times what I've noticed is, like, for example, if you were sold $1 million variable annuity, I had a client who did this. The person selling it could get close to $100,000 in commission. So there could be very large incentives for people to sell those policies. And again, there's a place for annuities. Like, I'm not a huge fan of annuities for like most people, but there's definitely a place for annuities. But unfortunately, they just get sold. Certain unscrupulous advisors who do this, investment insurance specialists. Again, I wouldn't even say that's most people. I mean, there's incredible ones out there. Like I said, you just got to be careful and get advice from some third party who's objective, who isn't going to get a commission or not, and run it by them.
Yep. Or talk to like 2-3 people you trust, and then end of the day, use your own judgment, research the credibility, research, what they are. I don't know, maybe hopefully if they're on social media as well, so you can look them up as well. Okay. So perm insurance may be suitable for ILIT. What's ILIT?
Yeah. So that's it's a type of trust, and it's actually designed to hold life insurance inside of it. And so it's a perfect example of a situation in which a whole life or permanent life insurance policy might be the ideal solution.
Okay. All right. So Emily said I did. Okay, man, I think she's just talking to someone else. Okay. So wait. Okay. Yeah, Eric said thank you for your description for 401k, Christine and Dr. Klontz. You're welcome, Eric. And then Idris said, as a follow-up, then is there much value in straight financial literacy that ignores mindset issue?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And of course, I've done tons of studies on this, and I've read tons of research on this. And I'll just give you an example. We just did a study that came out a few months ago where we did it in 5 cities across the country. We put half the people into a financial literacy class that was an hour long, and we taught them about how to save money. What are good cash vehicles? What percentage should you be saving? So education was great. And we saw about a 20% increase in people's savings behavior after that. And I got to tell you, 20% is incredible, right? So you're saving 10% income, now you're saving 12. In the other room, however, we did mindset stuff. And we spent about an hour doing it. We got people really excited about their goals, visualizing it. We talked about money scripts. We educated people on that. And we saw a 73% increase in savings. And we didn't tell them how to save. We didn't tell them where to put it. We didn't do any of that financial literacy stuff.
Yeah.
We just got them super excited. Mindset. And I know, Christine, you talk a lot about mindset. That's why I love it. That mindset overrode whatever else they were doing. And they got super passionate about it. An incredible increase in savings after 1 hour of doing that.
Wow, that's amazing. So you can, if you have to choose between working on just mindset and financial literacy, so people will tend to be more successful if they just work on their money mindset, and then even though we don't work on the practical?
Absolutely. I think so. All right, so think about the average American. The average American is in terrible, terrible financial shape. And let's talk pre-pandemic, okay? Because I know everybody's in terrible financial shape right now. You're not alone if you're suffering, okay? So pre-pandemic, Americans were in terrible financial shape. And let me tell you what, they weren't in terrible financial shape because they didn't know the difference between a Roth IRA and a 401k. That's not it at all. It's because they were spending more than they made and they weren't saving for the future. And I challenge you to find me somebody who doesn't already know they should do that, who isn't already aware that, oh yeah, of course I shouldn't be spending more than I have. And of course I should be saving for the future. Everybody already knows the two things that get people in the absolute most trouble. So I'm a huge fan of literacy and education. I'm a professor, for goodness sakes, but I'm just saying you get way more bang for your buck, because what I know is I don't need to become an expert in insurance. All I need to know is to have somebody that I can go talk to who is an expert that I trust, because they're the ones reading all the journals and know all the stuff and reading all the 100-page contracts. I don't want to do that. I don't want to become that educated in insurance. I just want to send some people to people I trust. So knowing that you don't know and knowing where to get that information is the financial literacy I think you need, frankly.
Yep. And then I do want to share, in the beginning stage of my financial coaching in 2016, I was very focused on just the practical aspect of finances, teach them budgeting, cash flow. But I think I quickly realized, it doesn't do them any good. You can teach them all the pluses and minuses. End of the day, budgeting is simple, right? You bring in more than what you take out. I mean, end of the day, that's it, right? But then there's so much mindset and stuff that you have to go through for them to actually go to the other side. So I quickly learned, I need to integrate both of that. Is very, very important. It's very, very hard to succeed if you don't integrate that. So
I totally agree. And the coaching thing is let me just put it this way. So I'm an absolute expert in financial psychology and financial planning, and I need coaching, because the thing is that you don't, it's like we're all operating in our own heads, right? And we're all creating these artificial limits, and we have no clue what they are. That's the issue. It's really easy for me to figure out what your issues are, Christine, because I'm not you. And as you're talking, I'm listening. And so that's why I think having those experts and whoever you consult with, that's the really only way to really get a handle on your mindset, at least in my opinion. I mean, it helps to read and all that, but you got to work it through.
Exactly. Okay. And money is not weird to love listening and talking about money. I love listening and talking about money. Okay. So scratch that out. It's not weird. It's great. It's embrace that, money. Okay. So David Mayers. Yeah, David is my friend. I love David. Commission vary by product. Whole or more broadly permanent life insurance can have a lot of value, particularly for folks who need permanent coverage. And that may include things like long-term care riders, and some annuities have very valuable income guarantees. But they are incredibly complex. People regularly use them in apples or oranges comparison. Always make sure you know why you have it and what the alternatives are. Be wary of anyone who always pushes insurance. So thank you, David, for saying that. Okay, so I'm working. Okay, so Eric said, can you give a general description on the difference between a good client and a not so good client? Okay, I'll let Brad start.
Yeah. So first of all clients are good. They just might not be good for me. And no, but in all seriousness, it comes down to, in psychology, we talk about the stages of change. Okay. So here's the bottom line. All of us are fabulous clients in certain areas of our life, and we're all terrible clients in other areas of our life. And so essentially it's, where are you along this psychological change stage? Like, are you totally, you have no clue this is an issue and you're in denial and resistance? Like every time my wife tells me I need to change something, I'm in denial, I'm in resistance, I'm a terrible client. Or am I in the action phase where I've already convinced myself this is something I need to do and all I need are the tools? So that's what I think about clients.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, we can. I mean, there's only so much clients we can get to, right? So for me, I just shoot for like at least like three to five new clients a month, because I think more than that. I mean, and also I'm not a perfect fit for everyone. Just like they're not a perfect fit for me, and that's okay. And then that's why I think like people who feel there's competition within financial professional, there's none. There's plenty of people. I mean, how many millions of people are in America or like California? So there's not, even when I did. So when I started my entrepreneurship, people always say, "Yeah, can you make money out of that?" Because like I don't manage investments, so then I don't have the regular recurring fee, right? But then when I calculate how much I really need clients to be profitable, multiply that by till I turn 70. I mean, there's more than enough. I literally need like 2,000 new clients. I mean, that's like still very little compared to how many people there are. So there's plenty. That's what abundance mindset. You have to trust. You can attract clients and attract money that you want. Okay. Emily said, I agree. It's more than budgets. It's beyond that. I quickly realized that. Awesome, Emily. Okay. Steven said, where have you heard about that, Christine? Which one are you mentioning about, Steven? So Steven's my friend too. I'm not, because sometimes the comment is not, it's kind of staggered. It's not on, on the same time. So just expand on that more, Steven. Okay. So great. I studied development psychology in school and worked for Bank of America for several years. You'll be successful in your education career. Okay. All right. So I think, and this, yeah, feel free, people, to ask more questions. And then, okay. So okay. So Brad, why don't we talk about the financial crisis now? How do people deal with the crisis right now? Because I think we are already in recession, right?
Yeah, so obviously the pain is very, very real for many, many Americans. I mean, every day goes by, I hear somebody who I just can't believe it, but they were holding on so long and then they just lost their job like last week. And so we're going to be feeling the impact of this for a very long time, and it's very, very real. Now, the things that I talk about, people are less concerned about their portfolios now because of the bounce, but I was talking to a lot of people, talking them off the ledge around their portfolios, around not doing anything stupid and going all the cash and all that kind of thing. And unfortunately, some people did that and they missed out on the biggest stock market move upward since the 1930s and within a 1 or 2 year week period. Just illustrating yet again that when you follow your emotions around investing, you're going to blow yourself up. You're going to do everything absolutely wrong and you're going to lose all your money, just to make it a little bit dramatic. But it's also true. That's how people just blow themselves up and do terrible things. So for what really concerns me is the financial stress, right? Because stress is extremely harmful and it can actually kill you. And what I try to keep people, a couple different mindsets that I talk to people about. One is that understanding that your financial situation, if you live in the United States, it's probably not going to kill you. I mean, we can thank the mere luck that we were born in this century, in this country, or similar countries across the world, for the fact that you're not going to die typically of financial matters. However, your financial stress will absolutely kill you. And they've done studies showing that it's just as bad as heart disease and cancer. I mean, it's like, it'll kill you. So trying to keep things in perspective. And so great tip for this is something I call the worst case scenario exercise. And so to decrease your anxiety about what's happening, just run down the path of the absolute worst case scenario. So you lost your job. Okay, terrible. Now you have no more money. Then you lose your house. Okay, that's terrible. Where are you going to go after that? Where are you going to go live? Who are you going to be with? And when people run through this exercise, at the end of the day, they realize, it's that would suck, but I'd survive and I can rebuild and I can get back on my feet. And people experienced this back in 2008, 2009, and they had to move in with relatives or friends or that kind of thing because they lost their house, and they were able to bounce back. And so I think it's a really helpful exercise because in psychology, it's an exposure treatment to this anxiety, because your brain is basically an on-off switch. It's like everything's fine or, oh no, I'm going to die. And if you run it, oh no, I'm going to die for long periods of time, you do die. And so it's about turning that switch off and realizing we're in this together. Obviously, it's this. We're all in the same storm. Like the winter in it's together can get a bad name. It's the same storm we're going through. We're all in a different boat. We're not having the exact same experience, but we're going to be on the other side of this. If you're filing for bankruptcy, no more shame, right? I mean, like, isn't everybody doing that nowadays? Aren't all the cool kids filing for bankruptcy? I mean, every time I see on the news, it's like some other company, and I'm just like, whoa. And so I think that actually helps us feel less shame. Is that this isn't your fault. I mean, quite literally, like we could have perhaps blamed you in the housing crisis, but if a government comes in and tells you, hey, your business is shut and you can't open, I mean, like, what are you supposed to do about that? So anyway, decreasing shame and just monitoring that anxiety.
Exactly. So what do you think about people who have committed suicide during the housing bubble? Like I feel like from my experience, like I had this aha moment the other day, like people who actually grew up with a lot of challenges in life, like they actually grew up to be more resilient. But then I feel like, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but then I feel like people who end up committing suicide was maybe because they were raised with maybe a silver spoon or gold spoon, and then now when the housing bubble crashed, whatever, they just don't know how to handle it because they don't have the tools. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that people have their self-esteem quite often wrapped up in their work and their ability to make money and their status and how other people see them. And so I think, to your point too, we're experiencing a major mental health crisis in the United States, and I think that's something that's not getting near enough attention. I think I know we're going to look back on this and see massive amounts of trauma, massive amounts of depression and anxiety. I'm thinking about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, in children. I'm just guessing that we're going to see a huge bump in that with all this anxiety everybody has.
In the toilet paper hoarding.
Yes, we all have toilet paper insecurity now.
So I did a post about that. I was like, watch how you share to your kids, because if you hoard toilet paper, they might think toilet paper is a great asset and they're gonna hoard toilet paper too. All right. So anyway, okay. So I'm going back to the comments. Emily said, I heard that this is the best time purchasing stock. Is that true? So again, Brad can't give you specific investment advice, but he can. What's your opinion on that, Brad?
Yeah. So my opinion is that essentially it's always a good time to be buying into the market. Like there's this thing called dollar cost averaging, and this happens automatically in your 401k, where every month you're sticking it in. Just the whole concept of, is it a good time or is it a bad time, is a problem. That mindset is a huge problem. And I'm not picking on you. This is ubiquitous. This is like, most people have this mindset. But it's trying to guess what's low, guess what's high. And this is where people lose their money. This guessing low, trying to pick the bottom, trying to pick the top. This is where people lose their money. So there's no reliable models that predict the future. If there was, I would be selling it right now. But there isn't one. Okay. And so trying to guess, that's when we lose.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. So Robert asks, what's the best way to consolidate debt and stick to a plan for maintaining a healthy debt level? What do you think?
Well, see, that's one of those questions that there's so many variables that would go into that. In terms of debt consolidation, I don't have an easy answer for it. The thing that I encourage people to do is to look really, really closely at where their debt is and what are the interest rates, and sort of start from there. And look at options for reducing those interest rates, and because consolidation could be student loans too. There's so many variables in there, but essentially, I think the thing that goes across the board is pay very, very close attention to what those interest rates are, and look and shop around for lower interest rates. And then whatever sort of strategy, like the debt snowball strategy, I don't even care. Like whatever strategy is to knock it down. I think that should be the top priority for a lot of people. And of course, it depends on the type of debt. Like some debt you'd never want to pay off. But like that non-secured credit card type debt, super dangerous for people. It's so easy to get in trouble with that. But it's something you want to tackle.
Yep. And Robert, as a short answer from my end, hire a financial coach. Okay. So should we be concerned about inflation?
Inflation is a thing. But I'm not sure what we would do with our concern, in all honesty. I guess, I don't know, would we then try to guess on the future of gold or silver or whatever? This is where it's like these things, these macroeconomic things, we're essentially powerless to deal with. And it's also really, really tough to predict. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know. And look around, do you see inflation happening? Is it impacting your life right now? I think those are the questions to be asking yourself.
Yeah, I think for me, the only concern with inflation is just you just have to pay attention that your dollar, whatever $100 you're saving, that might not be $100 later on. So you have to take that into consideration. And then leaving that in cash is just like you might as well just put that under your mattress. So you're literally losing money to inflation every single year. So that's why I'm not a big fan of leaving my money in my savings, because right now it's less than 1%, right? So you're literally losing money to the inflation. So that's my
Well,
opinion. So
you
Eric,
had a much
okay.
better answer to that question. I was going for the macroeconomic analysis of what's happening after the pandemic, but you have excellent advice. We should all be worried about inflation. I mean, otherwise we would stick our money under the mattress.
Exactly. Okay. Eric asks, "What are your three favorite books?" That's a good question.
Yeah, so it would have to be. I'd need more specifics around the topics. It's kind of funny. I wasn't planning on this, but my favorite book that I've written is this one, Mind Over Money. Happen to have it
Your
here.
book.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is my favorite one on the psychology of money.
Okay.
The one that I love I read this when I was first getting into personal finance, my own journey. The Richest Man in Babylon is just such a fabulous book.
Oh. Okay.
Have you seen that one, Christine?
I've heard of it, but I never read it. I've read the Think and Grow Rich. What do you think of that book?
Yeah, Napoleon Hill. That's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I love The Richest Man in Babylon because it's essentially a parable of the richest dude in Babylon and his approach to money.
Yeah.
And it just
Oh,
really
okay.
gives you a philosophy that it's sort of an overarching philosophy that is so incredibly useful and valuable. There's one other one that I'd recommend, not just because I quoted in it, but it's I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi.
Oh, okay.
And yeah,
Okay,
it's a good book. Like, I mean, it gives you a lot of great stuff on credit and banks and how to deal with banks, some overarching philosophy around investing, that kind of thing. So,
Yep. Okay. I purchased a home in 2007, shortly before the crisis. Talk about great timing. Okay, so don't worry. I had to short sell my home too. So I mean that was my biggest financial mistake. Like I wrote an article about that. Like if I could turn back time, I would never short sell it. But everyone else was walking out of their home, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I should leave it here too. But anyway, that was my biggest mistake. Okay,
okay, can I
Danielle.
say something real fast about
Yeah, go
mistakes? So the
ahead.
average millionaire has had 3 major financial catastrophes in their life. 3. Okay. The average non-millionaire, less than 1. So great job on that house failure. All you need is 2
Okay.
more.
Okay, no, no, no. It's okay. I'm good with one. All right, right. I thank you for reframing that, Brett. Okay, so Danielle, how do you coach clients who need to make more income but don't want to make too much money so they will lose or decrease housing or disability payments, for example? Yeah, what do you think, Brett?
Yeah, so that is really, really challenging. And essentially, you've been put in a double bind, right? So, like, how do you do that? And by the way, there's been a
Mhm.
ton of studies that have been on this topic in terms of disability payments and all of that. And of
Mhm.
course, we need that disability security net. Absolutely. But it also
Mhm.
hampers your entrepreneurial spirit. And people can get really stuck there because if I make a certain amount of money, then all of a sudden there's this place between welfare where I'm getting my insurance covered and all this, and that place where I can pay for all that myself. There's this gray area in here where you start to lose everything, your health insurance, your ability to pay rent, whatever sort of stipends you were getting. And it's so incredibly challenging. I don't know what to say other than that without knowing a
Yep.
specific situation, but just psychologically, it is incredibly challenging.
Yep, I know. And then like yeah, it's very hard though. Even like with my clients, like they're negative cash flow and then they only make so much money. So the only big next step is really to work on their self-esteem, actually get a better job, work on that skill. So I mean like there's only so much you can cut down and then while making more money. So you either have to get a second job, side hustle, sell stuff at home. So some of them like literally like I helped one client like quit her job because like she wasn't making enough. She was working graveyard shifts. So good thing she was able to pursue that. Like she just needed someone to push her to build her self esteem. So she found another job closer to home, making like 20K more. So I was really really happy for her. Okay. Someone asked Idris, what do you think is the future of financial coaching relative to other positions in the financial industry? And why has there been more growth in financial therapy, or what do you think is needed for more growth? Yeah, Brad.
Why has there not been more growth? Oh, okay. So first of all, I've dedicated a big part of my career, and Shags can attest to this, and I know he's done so also. He's a friend of mine too. To help bringing these coaching skills into the realm of financial planning and financial services. And so I think financial coaching is sort of the wave of the future, and it's happening right now. And part of it is like people already working in the industry who are getting another skill set because they realize it's not just dollars and cents, it's mindset. So I see a lot of growth there. And financial therapy, there's tons of growth there too. Actually, New York Times article just came out yesterday. Paul Sullivan, he was kind enough to quote me, as well as some other people, talking about the massive growth in the whole area of dealing with stress around money. So financial therapy is a little bit tricky too. Like, who's a financial therapist? I think the entire profession is sort of wondering that right now. But you're finding psychotherapists who are becoming more and more comfortable talking about money. And you're finding financial professionals who are bringing in those psychological skill set and theories into their work with clients. And so obviously, I think it's fabulous.
Yep. And then I also talk a lot about dating and money. So it's like, I know people when they're dating, they don't bring up money, and sometimes they're more comfortable talking about sex versus money. So it's like, so what do you think about that, Brad? Like, why are some people just uncomfortable, especially with couples talking about money? And sometimes even when they're married, they don't even talk about money. I've had couples who come to me like they literally never seen each other money. They just separate it out. So what do you think about that?
Oh, I'd feel a lot less stressed, Christine, if we just switched the topic to sex. And we just talked about that. So people, we have a tremendous amount of shame, and you're totally right. Like when they do surveys, people would rather talk to their kids about sex than about money. It's like, wow, how uncomfortable is money? Because I don't want to talk to my kids about that. And so I think a lot of it has to do with shame, right? So first of all, it's a huge taboo topic. Like we're taught, actually don't talk about money. I mean, this is actually what a lot of us are taught. It's impolite. Nobody, you don't go to your friend's house as a kid and see your friend's parents talking about how much they made, right? It's this big shame thing. So I think we're wired to feel shamed. We're wired to feel embarrassed. Somebody asked earlier about like, why are wealthy people, why do they downplay their money? Well, some of it has to do with they're afraid of being looked at badly or, judged by other people. So whether you have a little, whether you have a lot, there's tons of judgment that we feel, and there's tons of anxiety around it.
Yep. So let me ask you. I know, Brad, you have kids, right? Like, how many kids do you have?
I have 2, and it feels like 5.
How old are they now?
I've got a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Okay, so how do you start teaching them about money? I'm curious. Like, how are you raising your kids to be good with money?
Yeah, probably terribly. Although I do think about it a lot. So one of the things we've done with my eldest son, who's now 7, is we give him an allowance. Okay. But he earns it. So, I mean, we don't pay him per chore. Like, I think that's actually a really bad idea because eventually those kids are going to become teenagers and you'd be like, I don't want your money. I'm not doing my chores. So you don't really want to do that. So he has his chores. He has to do those. And he also gets an allowance. So we kind of separate those two out. Regardless, you're going to do your chores. But what we do is my wife and I thought about what are the values we want to instill in him. Well, we want him to learn to delay gratification. So we give him his allowance. So he has to save some he sets aside for investing, some he sets aside to give to charities. And then the other he can spend now, because we want him to learn all those things. We want him to learn money can be enjoyed right now. You need to save some. You need to invest some for the long term, save something for something big, a month or 2 from now, invest for the long term and give to others. And so that's how so we're teaching him through the reality of using allowance.
Got it. So yeah, I'm actually surprised that you said don't like pay them for chores. Like how do you teach your kids the concept of they have to earn the money that it doesn't come for free? Like the allowance is not for free. So I'm actually
so what we did is we actually did both at the same time. So we're like, hey, look, you're so they're connected in a sense. Like, okay, so now you have this chore list and you're also going to be getting an allowance. But there is no choice about not doing the chores. So that's the important part. Because again, I used to work with adolescents for like 20 years. And what's going to happen is they're going to say, I don't want $10 today. And you're going to be losing your mind because their room is dirty. And then what are you going to do, right? Because you've set this whole thing up that I'm not going to do it unless you pay me. And part of the philosophy I want him to have is like, hey, look, we're a family. We're an economic unit. We all pull our own weight. He's like, I'm not going to, Oh, will you go help your brother open his juice box? Okay, for $1. It's like, no.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So I don't have kids. I will never know this, but that's actually very funny. Like, actually, I had a friend who told me that how they train their baby to to sleep through the night was actually they stop listening to them when the baby cry. Like they to watch the baby, but let them self-soothe so they can go back to sleep. So actually, that was interesting because I know a lot of parents like when the baby cried, they're like, "Oh," then they never sleep through the night, right? So
Right.
actually, I thought that was very interesting. Okay, so we're coming to the hour now. So okay, so how wait oh actually no, actually Brad, we want to talk more about like your TikTok. I know like if you haven't seen him on TikTok, he does amazing videos there. You have like what, 70,000 followers, 60,000 followers
Yeah,
now?
about
How many do
70.
you have?
Yep.
Wow, like you when did you start it in TikTok?
I started in October.
Wow, that is amazing. So I
Yeah.
started actually in wait, when did I start? Oh, October 2019 LinkedIn. I only have 50,000 followers. So you actually you have a lot more followers on TikTok. And then I tried TikTok and then I was like, I don't understand. I was like, oh, this video and then like I
Well,
don't know
we'll
how
trade coaching sessions. You can coach me on LinkedIn and I'll coach you on TikTok.
awesome. So yeah, if you have any tips, like I mean, just quick tips, how can people find you on TikTok, and also like how can people utilize TikTok to actually educate people whatever they need to do on TikTok?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Brad Klontz everywhere. So LinkedIn, Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram,
Yep.
also on
Awesome.
TikTok. bradklontz.com. That's my website. And so TikTok really so I heard about TikTok from my 14-year-old nephews. And the crazy thing about TikTok is,
Yeah.
I was with them and they're like, here, check this out. And the problem is once you look at it, you're like, oh my God. And then, and then your beard grows and you lost weight. And so, first of all, it's kind of an addicting platform in that sense. And then, secondly, I started to see all this stuff come up that was really like terrible information around finances that were being doled out to these impressionable young people. And I grew up, my mom says we were middle class, except much lower. So I grew up kind of there without really knowing much about finance. And so I have a passion for teaching that younger generation. So that's really what got me on there, is like, how can I take these complex financial topics, try to make them funny, try to make them engaging in 15 seconds, lip syncing and dancing, So that's the challenge. So I took on that challenge and I've just been having tons of fun. Now, in the meantime, the demographics has totally changed. So there's a lot of people who are much older there, but I found it as a fun way to educate.
So how have you started to see the impact? Like, are people messaging you? Like, I mean, like,
yeah.
what kind of impact have you seen from whatever you're doing there?
So in 1 week, no, actually it was about 3 weeks, I got 3,000 messages on Instagram from people directly from TikTok. And again, young people asking me questions about, investing, basic stuff, right? And so I feel really passionate about trying to help those people and steer them in the right direction. I don't have a business model to like benefit from any of that, but that's really not why I went there. And by the way, it'd be okay if I did, but that's not why I was there. But I've also gotten a lot of, frankly, I've gotten a lot of clients from it too, as the demographics have changed. And I'm actually TikTok is, I'm actually a creator for them now. They have me sign this lengthy contract. I'm doing educational content for them. They're trying to shift to more educational content. So yeah, so it's been a lot of fun there too.
Do they pay you when you become a creator now?
Yeah, yep. So it was it's like a month-and-a-half deal where I just create a certain amount of content, and yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I actually have a TikTok famous TikTok. She's Jade. She has a 1.5 million followers. She's actually gonna be my live stream guest. I think I forget when she signed up, but she's signing up. She has 1.5 million followers. So we're gonna talk all about TikTok. So if you guys are interested in that, like how people monetize and everything, so that's
I think I've seen her on
interesting.
YouTube. Is she pretty big on YouTube, Jade?
I forgot.
Anyway, I think she might be.
Vincent, I think. Yeah. So okay. All right. So tell us more. Like, how can people find you? And if you have any last minute words, Brad.
Yep. So Dr. Brad Klontz on social media, bradklontz.com. And I don't know that I have any extra wise words. I think I'll sort of shift it to the pandemic, and I'll tell you the mindset that I have been walking around with. And look, I'm not immune to what's been going on, right? I own an asset management business, and when the assets go down like this, since we're fee only, our fees go down. Like we're connected to what's happening with our clients. Also, the universities are being threatened. Like it's a bloodbath in a lot of universities right now, by the way, with staff getting fired and all that. So the threat is real, and it's happening to a lot of people. And so the mantra I have that I've had is called, "Where's the opportunity? Where's the opportunity?" This is something that I encourage you to say 10 times a day. So you're stuck at home. I'm there with my 2 kids. There's no escape, but where's the opportunity? And I got to tell you, I'm a better father now than I was 3 months ago. I'm a better husband. Hopefully my wife would attest to that. I've been trying, but I'm a better husband now than I was 3 months ago. And so just as an example of, in the midst of any crisis, there are opportunities all around us. So the pain is real. Have a good cry, look for help, look for support, but then shift to where's the opportunity.
I love that. I love that. Sometimes if you keep asking questions, like some answer just come to you. So I think that's a great way to shift to the positive mindset. So thank you so much, Brad, for joining. I really appreciate that. And then thank you so much to all the viewers, your comments. It's been awesome. So I always appreciate people coming on. So have a good day, you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.